Welcome to the Youth Pastors Are Pastors Too podcast, recorded in Central Texas, broadcasting to the world. Join your hosts and their weekly guests for insight, advice, guidance, and ideas to help your ministry flourish and help you take care of yourself. Now, with a combined 35 years of ministry experience, your hosts, Jacob Taylor and Jeremy Helms.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 11. We're second week in double digits, and man, I think we looked at it yesterday, 2 months of episodes, and we looked at the numbers, and man, people are listening, and that's exciting. So, Jeremy, how have you been this past week?
Well, it's been, we've stayed indoors because of all the storms, but just continuing to try to serve my wife and make sure she's taken care of. I think her foot's healing. She's in less pain now, so that's
good.
plus. And man, she was, I think she was in some pretty serious pain for at least a week. And so she's doing better now. I did confirm that during our recording, I think on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, I think that was episode 9, she actually broke her foot while we were recording.
Wow.
So fun fact, my wife was breaking her foot while we were recording episode 9. So, but no, we're good around here, man. What's going on with you, Jacob?
Well, let's see, ever since last week, same thing, weather. I've been, I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago, how I obsessed over weather, and I've been following that the last couple of days. I do have a fundraiser coming up this weekend for camp, and so that's been my main focus the last couple of days.
What are y'all serving, man?
Oh, barbecue, man! It's every year. If you need fundraiser ideas, a barbecue is always the way to go. And the way we set it up is that I go out and talk to different people, different businesses, and they donate all the briskets, the sausage, the sides, all that stuff. So really there's no out-of-pocket cost. There's minor things. This year we're doing to-go plates, so we'll have to get to-go basket things and stuff. But really there's no out-of-pocket cost, and basically that means every penny that's donated on Sunday will be directly going into the camp budget. So we've had huge success in the past. We weren't able to do it last year, but this will be our first official back to meal as a church since COVID. So everybody's excited about it. I'm excited to be able to it's something that we do every year, and it's just, it's one of those things that we're getting back to normal, and it's cool to see. So just busy with that. And if you're in the Central Texas area and you're looking for good barbecue, because I can tell you, best barbecue in town. Sunday we'll start serving about 12:30 whenever church ends. So if you're in the Elgin area and you're like, but Elgin has barbecue, we're better than them too. So, and that's about it.
Love that.
So,
and and it's all for the kids, man. It's just making sure that kid gets to go to camp, and if they ain't got no money, or even if they got money, and you can defer the cost or decrease the amount, that's good stuff. Good stuff.
And like I said, we've been pretty successful to where no kids. I think the last time we did it, kids had to pay like $80 or something. But that was it. This year, I'm hoping to have no cost for the kids.
That's cool.
So
it's good. It's good.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think we've got an exciting guest today. You and I have known Garrett for at least 16 years.
Yeah.
A long time.
Very long time. And
when he was a wee tyke.
Oh, I didn't know him until after I left camp, I think. I knew of him. I talked to him at camp, messed with him while he was picking up trash. But I don't think we really built a relationship, like friendship relationship, until after, and kind of flourished. To give, I guess, a little background, obviously, I mean not obviously, but Garrett is a worship pastor out of Houston, but he started in Austin, and I used to travel with him, played with him, kind of built a relationship around that, and then you'll hear a little bit about it, but we kind of had a falling out because of different, how do you say it, different ministry goals, I guess. And then we kind of just full circle came back to it, and now, I mean, it's, I think, like, you know, I think I talk about it earlier in the conversation, is we're good. And he was in my wedding, both weddings. So I think I would consider him one of my closest friends now, and the whole conversation is good and gives a good perspective of a worship pastor and not just the pastor, youth pastor, or whatever. So, and I think we talked about that many times in our episodes, is that we're not here just for youth pastors. We're here for everybody in ministry. And I think we learned real fast that just because he's a worship pastor doesn't make him any different than the struggles that we go through as youth pastors or pastors or whatever. So
totally on point, man. Totally on point.
So, I guess we just jump right into it.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Today on the what are we gonna call it today?
I almost said my podcast name.
Oh, you have a podcast. I got it. The Morgan Adair Hotline is Garrett Gardner, worship pastor out of Houston at Copperfield Church, and we are lucky to have him because I was watching the news earlier and I noticed that there was a tornado spinning over the top of Katy, Copperfield area last night. So, hey, we are glad you're with us. Garrett graduated from Howard Payne.
Oh, go ahead.
Is that the Stingham whatever?
Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, it's because I have fat fingers. He met his wife, I believe, was at Howard Payne, right?
Yep.
They've been married 7 years.
And I witnessed the wedding, so it's legit. He's been married 7 years.
Jacob didn't like me back then, so
that's not for the podcast.
We were broken up.
But we got past it, and that's what's important. Garrett, why don't you tell us more about what you're doing in Houston and, you know, just things that I forgot to mention.
Yeah. I'm the worship arts pastor at Copperfield Church. So we're kind of in the Cypress area there in Houston. I'm in charge of all worship and production for the church and various other tasks as they arise.
Awesome.
If anything goes, like, if the sound and stuff, the trouble you had leading up to recording this is what it sounds like on Sunday, man, that's rough on your people.
Congregation.
Yeah.
It's a Wednesday. My brain's turned off until Saturday. So,
must be nice.
Either that or they are a grace-filled people.
They're
not there. They're not there for the production. They're there for Jesus, right?
Right.
Well, some of you may be wondering, this podcast is called Youth Pastors, Youth Pastor 2, but we have a worship arts pastor on, and I got to say, this is our first worship pastor on, and I'm glad to have you on, Garrett. We want to start though with your calling, if that's okay. So, could you maybe just tell us a little about when you knew you were called to worship, to lead worship, to be a part of that, and what that kind of looked like?
Yeah. So that's a interesting one. That started, I felt a calling to the ministry back in 2008, I think.
How old were you?
I would have been, you're going to feel old. I would have been a sophomore in high school, I think.
Okay.
Ew, gross.
So I think that was actually the year that I met your wife, Jeremy. So 2008 or 2007. But yeah, I accepted a call to the ministry. At the time, I was at a real small church, and no blame on the church, but it was one of those things where I felt like the only things you could do in ministry were, be the music guy or be a pastor. And so I didn't feel like I was musically inclined. And so I was like, well, got to be a pastor. It was affirmed in my life that that's what was going to happen. So kind of kept pursuing that path. Ended up not going to A&M as I truly wished to. Went to Howard Payne and ended up playing baseball there. But in my time at Howard Payne, about my second year there, I realized, you know what, I really do have a affinity for music, calling for music. I want to be in that industry. And so through a lot of different things God put in my life, different opportunities to work with some amazing people that fulfilled some of those needs to understand my calling, and some really, really unbelievable events. I ended up, understanding that my calling was a little bit different. And I feel like that's a morphing thing. Even today, I look at my calling and say, okay, that's changing constantly. I don't necessarily know what the next step is, and it could be slightly different. So, yeah.
I remember. Do you remember their first? This might not have been your first, but it was mine when we played that New Year's thing.
Oh yeah,
FBC Bastrop. That was,
yeah. I almost died.
I think we all almost died. The thing about when I played, I was very. They made fun of me for this. I moved around a lot, and I remember we had set up these spotlights around where we were standing and playing, and I knocked over a spotlight right into my face. And so for about 35 to 40 minutes, the spotlight was just shining right in my face while I was playing. And I was wearing a hoodie at the time, and I was just pouring down this massive spotlight. Was just,
oh yeah,
I was just sweating. And I think is that where your journey started into really music?
There was probably an event or two before that, but that was probably one of the first events that I would say successfully helped move me down that direction, that path.
And that was, man, what was that? 2010?
11 or 12, something like, or 10. Probably 10,
like
yeah.
It's been a while.
Oh, yeah.
And just to see you grow from that to what you're doing now is, I mean, we did have our rough spot, but it was still good to see you continue doing what you're doing and grow where you're at now. And I told you this before. I think you have the talent to be, to lead worship anywhere really, and not, you see these major, churches like Passion Church and all that, and like those guys are talented, but I think you have a different sound and talent to what you do, and you haven't forgot that it's a ministry and not a performance, and that's good to see, especially as a youth pastor. And when I call you to come to D Now, you don't let the music take over what you're actually there to do, and that's.
He didn't send a writer either, does he?
No. Well, I don't have the budget for a writer, but
it's encouraging. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll say this past D Now, whether it wasn't about the students, obviously, because of what the situation with Amanda's mom, you stuck around and helped with other ministry things. Like, you took over the camera. You did, you helped me set up the live stream for D Now and stuff. So you didn't stop at the music and the leading worship. You ventured out and helped in other ministry ways where we needed help, especially that weekend. So, I mean, and that's a far growth from when that New Year's performance, their worship led thing. So, it's good to see, and I'm glad we're friends again. So, what else were we gonna ask? Tell us about your role as a worship arts pastor and what that kind of looks like.
Oh goodness. So one thing to understand about where I am currently, I actually had taken a small break from being worship pastor and served at a couple different churches as production manager, lead. Ended up coming to Copperfield specifically to take on a full-time role as their production director, and had been here for about a year and a half when our worship pastor left. And during that time, they were like, hey, you work here, you lead worship. I would fill in for him when he was gone. So it was a natural, easy way to move someone into that role without having to go and look outside. And since then, we actually, I am still in both roles technically, which is a little wild for a church of our size. But I have amazing volunteers that make it all work well.
That's good. That's good. Well, and you were ordained what, about 2 years ago?
Well, it would have been right in that transition because there were some parts of being in that worship pastor role that more or less required that. Also, I really wanted insurance for my wife because I couldn't afford the government's insurance. So that was the push for me. So yeah, I think that was 2017, 2018, something like that.
Yeah. I remember that going down, and as you think about God calling you, so many years ago, it's that same calling, and as you continue to serve, I can't think of a time that you didn't serve. I mean, have you ever had a real job?
Yes.
No.
On top of serving, yes.
But you've always been serving in some capacity in the local church, and and as Jacob kind of mentioned, it's been just a progression and a journey, and it's been fun to watch. I know from our perspective, even though that you guys had a breakup for just a little bit, it's still fun to watch, right? Oh, yeah. But the people recognizing the call that God's placed on your life is a kind of a big deal, and I think that's powerful, and I love that, and I love that that body of believers laid hands on you and ordained you. That's good stuff. I have it might come across as a silly question.
Yep.
Did you think it was silly, Jacob?
For somebody that's been on both sides, I think it's a legitimate question.
All right. Well, we won't call it a silly question, but so listen.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when we get in the trenches, maybe a youth pastor or even a pastor might look at the worship leader and think that the worship leader is having all the fun. and from your perspective, is it that way? Do worship pastors experience highs and lows, or is it? Because from what I can tell, you're just having a bunch of fun, and I'm doing all the work.
Well, I can tell you that, since the storm happened last night, I've already been up to the church and cleaned all the grates out in the parking lot so it didn't flood, and had to reboot all of the network and security cameras and all that stuff. So specifically me, there's a lot of work that ends up. We flooded our worship center last week. Baptistry is in our atrium, and it ran over, flooded out the entire worship center.
Wow.
So
I saw the
actually
pictures.
Was not there for the immediate water extraction. I wasn't there for, but I got to have the fun of putting all of the tiles of the gym floor back.
Wow. So you didn't have to replace them. You just had to extract the water and then put the stuff back?
Yeah, luckily they were those the plastic puzzle piece gym floor pieces. So they ripped all those up, and there were some metal grates, tracks underneath that cables run in and pockets in the floor. And all those caught all the water, which luckily saved the rest of the building from taking on as much water as it did. But yeah, that was quite a feat to put all that back down in one day.
My goodness.
So what you're saying is that you, as a worship arts pastor, you're not just doing Sunday mornings and setting up for production. You went out and pulled grates so your parking lot wouldn't flood.
Yeah.
So you're doing it all. But is there downfalls to what you do? Like, what do you personally struggle with when it comes to the ministry side?
Sure. Specifically on the amount of work part, I totally get exactly what y'all are alluding to, because I have been around worship pastors in my past that are exactly that. They figure out how to do as little amount of work as possible. And I've even heard a lead pastor say, worship pastors don't have to do anything. That's their gig. They just show up, sing. Because I've worked in regular, everyday, secular jobs, I hate that, and I will never let myself do that. But that also leads to a pride issue, because I have a tendency to overwork myself, really bad burnout, and then I take that home. I take that out on my wife. I explode on people at random. It's not healthy to do that either. You have to find a balance, which I'm still working on. Haven't gotten there yet, but working on that balance.
Yeah, I think I think most ministry, like, because how do I say this without being like, people like us, like I would consider us blue collar ministry workers. We know one gear, and that's to go 100% all the time.
Right.
And then the only people that it affects is the people at home. Because I do that now. Like, me currently right now is working on my time off. Like, just because, the time of year, it's super busy. Like this weekend, we have a barbecue fundraiser for camp, and that's what I worked on last night.
Yep.
And I was up till like 2:00, and I'm like, man. And then I had to get up for this, and I'm like, ooh. And then I have church obviously tonight, unless the weather goes bad. But
right.
I mean, it's as a youth pastor, or even in Jeremy's case, it's easy for us to look at worship pastors and just be like, those guys just show up, play music, and they're out like after Sunday. And I think it's in a way encouraging to know that you guys, like worship pastors, struggle with the same thing we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, obviously I had what's the word? I had a goal in mind when I asked that question, and you hit the nail on the head. We all struggle. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you're a youth pastor, a worship leader, a sound guy, a senior pastor, a volunteer, a Sunday school teacher, a circle group teacher, whatever you call it. We have to learn that word. We go back to that word. It's balance, right? We have to learn that, because many of us have just taken a crash course, ministry 101, and that is, hey, God called me to ministry. Now I'm in a church. What do I do?
Yeah,
that's right.
So it's okay to struggle. So I think you answered that question well, Garrett, and I do appreciate the insight on that. But part of what we're trying to do and develop is just say, hey, it's normal. It's okay. and we're here as a community, our podcast, us as a group of people, ministers and people who want to point people to Jesus. We're not perfect, and we just want to be here for you. We want to encourage you, and we want to love on you. So,
and I think we have to remember that even though we have different roles in the ministry, we all have the same goal. Mm-hmm. And whether it's the music or the children's or the youth pastors or pastors, we all have the same goal. We just have different roles, and
that's right.
We're all on the same team. We just don't need to fight.
I think what Jacob's trying to say is he loves you, Garrett.
Well,
I love him, so.
Well, this podcast has taken a different turn, but.
Well,
yeah.
Love in Christ, yes.
Yeah.
The philo love.
And I will say the best weekend of the year is always the, first weekend of March every year, when all them guys and girl come into Elgin, Texas for 3 days or 2 days if you're Garrett.
That's right.
Because he has to be back at church on Sunday instead of sticking around and.
Well, I was there twice. Did Garrett? He had he had something going on, I think, but it was like the Garrett Garner band minus Garrett Garner.
Well, there was 1 year I went on vacation. It's the first time in 6 years of marriage we'd gone on vacation, so that was a huge deal.
Wow. Well, that's important too,
Yeah. That was a weird year because it's like the Garrett Garner's band's coming without Garrett.
Well, that's what happens when Daniel and I both have bands and it consists of the exact same people.
Just different lead singer, yeah.
It's like, we'll just, okay.
Well,
and also Morgan's in charge of scheduling. That's what happens. He forgets to tell people.
He's terrible.
Yeah. Well,
he texted me last night and said, "Are we still playing a camp this summer?" I'm like, "Yeah, 2." Okay.
Gosh. Morgan. Well, we did. He did sponsor the.
He did sponsor the hotline. So. Yeah. And shout out to his wife for being a fan of the podcast.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. We appreciate the feedback, Kelsey. Go, Jacob.
So, how long have you been doing ministry, including your stint at Highland Lakes? Like,
man,
you're like one of the few that went from like a volunteer to a team servant to. You went through the ranks in like 3 weeks at Highland Lakes.
I don't do rules well.
Did they give you keys?
I probably have some somewhere. There was a conversation one time about how I ended up with a radio as a high school kid, and I don't remember. I just had one.
The radios.
You could have taken mine. I would never want to have a radio again.
To this day, Kelly Colbath still has stories about when I worked there. It's a little terrifying.
Wait, Rob, I had our own channel. They wouldn't let us be on Channel 1. Did you know that?
Well, you talked all the time.
Yeah. Well, you were in that group of people that removed the top of a truck and said, "Oh, we got a convertible."
Oh, you and Dwayne?
Yeah.
And then they turned the windshield wiper sprayers to the opposite side, so when they would drive down the road, turn the windshield wiper sprayers on, and it would shoot people.
There you go.
Oh my goodness!
To get out of the way. So,
oh my goodness!
So, counting your time at Highland Lakes till now, how long have you been doing this?
I would say either 2005 or 2006. What summer did Carrie start?
16 years. Her first summer was 2005.
Okay, so it was 2005 because our first summer was the same summer.
16 years, man.
Wow.
I was a little bit younger than her.
Weren't you in 8th grade or something?
Yeah, see that whole rule thing doesn't.
Well, yeah. You're supposed to be a freshman, but I really think you were like an 8th grader.
Who actually knows?
Yeah,
I'm sure my mom could tell you, but.
Speaking of your mom, she has to be one of the nicest people in the world. I remember the first night that we actually met. We went to the Westlake football game where Bastrop beat Westlake in the last minute. It's still one of the greatest moments.
Hail to the Bastrop Bears, baby.
You can actually go see on YouTube a video of me and Morgan running down the bleachers because it was a last minute play and we were all stoked. And Garrett had his friends from Westlake, so it was kind of awkward afterwards because they were like, "We just lost," and I don't.
They were my friends from Westlake.
And if you have no idea what he's talking about, Bastrop, Texas has a huge rivalry versus Westlake out of Austin, because Austin usually just smears Bastrop. Mm-hmm. All right, go ahead.
And then afterwards, I remember the truck you used to drive used to be a pace car.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was like a little Chevy truck, and it was like a pace car, so it was like a massive engine. And then we went to his house, and his mom never met the lady, just kept feeding me, just kept sending food, and I was like, "Come on,
that's her love language."
Martha, I can't eat all this. And then ever since, I mean, Martha's a saint, and we need more Marthas in the world.
I mean, she did have 4 children, so she knows how to feed people.
I mean, she was involved in the youth while you were there.
Yeah, and then she served as the she was technically for children's, but she also worked for students as well. She was like an admin for a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then I mean, your mom, I mean, your dad too. You know, I mean, you just come from this family that has modeled servant leadership. You know, and we're kind of, I don't know if we're getting off topic, but it's just the flow of the convo here. And I mean, your parents modeled that, and
yeah,
is what it is. And now here you are, leading people in worship and taking them to the throne. You know, and I think that's awesome. That's awesome stuff. So
yeah, even as a kid, I remember going up with my dad on a Saturday or during the summer or whatever, and he's a construction guru, so we were doing building and ground stuff, maintenance stuff. Obviously, before we got to much larger church, but we did all that, and that was got to go fix thermostats or whatever, and that was just what was going to happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's weird. It's funny because my parents were the same way. My dad actually designed a church in Lufkin. My parents are actually church plants in Lufkin. They started a church, Southside Baptist Church in Lufkin, and he's the one who designed the building and all that stuff. And it's just, I guess it really, I mean, this is kind of off topic, but I guess it starts with the way you raise your kids and an example you set for your kids. And I mean, I went on to do camp ministry, and then I'm youth ministry. My sister is a pastor's wife. And Garrett's brothers, they're all doing, like, Trevor does sound stuff at Hyde Park, or the quarries at Hyde Park, or whatever you call it. Your other brother was doing stuff for the special needs thing, and it's all an example. And I guess as we add on to the worship pastor, is we have to set example for people that are younger than us to continue the ministry of what we are doing and stuff.
Yeah,
so,
amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So
that's exactly right. Well, Garrett, if you were to share a story and it would keep you and all your fellow friends out of trouble, what is your most amazing youth ministry worship pastor story?
Oh gosh,
that'll just get us going. Wow.
There are so many.
Well, that's why we prepped you.
Embarrassing or funny?
Hey, which is your call.
Let's do embarrassing.
Oh, embarrassing. Man, I was leading worship at this small church in Brownwood. I think we had max maybe 130 people. And I get up there one Sunday morning and I'm trying to sing 10,000 Reasons. This would have been 2013, 2014. So the song's pretty fresh. Everybody knows it. You're singing it every week. And I start playing and I couldn't make the rhythm happen. And I I knew the words, but I couldn't make them match up, and it was so bad. It was the most embarrassing thing ever. And I turn and look at the girl that's singing with me, and she just looks at me and I'm like, please start singing. And she just stood there and stared at me, and the whole congregation stared at me. And so some part of my brain says, nah, just keep going. It's fine. So I didn't stop. I just powered through it terribly. That was real fun.
Oh,
I have a crazy story with the music thing.
Yeah.
And you might not remember this, but I tell this story a lot. If you haven't picked up, I used to play with Garrett when he first started out and stuff. So we went to a camp. What camp was that? Outside of
Latham
Waco?
Springs.
Latham Springs.
Tequila, Texas.
We had this guy, and he still plays with Garrett, Andrew. And at the time, it was a preteen camp, and these girls just kept asking Andrew if he was One Direction. What was that guy's name?
Harry Styles.
Harry Styles. And at first we were like, no, it's not Harry Styles. But eventually we were like, oh yeah, it's Harry Styles, all right. And it got to a point where Andrew couldn't even walk around the camp without the girls swarming him.
We did band intros, and I introduced him as Harry Styles, and it was great. We had sunglasses. They were these cheap garbage Wayfarer sunglasses.
Yeah.
And we sold them. They were probably worth 75 cents a piece, and we sold them for $5 a piece. Made $500 in one night.
Yeah, they were super stoked thinking that was Harry Styles. We would have to Andrew would have to go to the dorm and straight into the auditorium. So
yeah,
we were running security for him.
That's right.
Because they all thought he was Harry
coolest
Styles.
Performance of my life. The one time that music was performance, we thought it was funny to get during the opening rally in the mornings at camp. They always want peppy, hyped up music.
Oh, yeah.
So we decided we were going to start playing. What was the name of that One Direction song? You Don't Know You're Beautiful.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we started, I had my back to the kids, and I wasn't it just wasn't planned that way. I just had my back, and we started playing that song, and those kids start losing it. I mean, it was I felt like we were in an arena, and they're screaming their heads off. And we had student pastors coming up and be like, "Are y'all gonna tell them?" We're like, "No." Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hilarious because Harry Styles is from England, and Andrew is half Asian, half Hispanic, so they totally don't look anything alike other than their haircut.
Yeah, their haircut at the time was, but it was just fun. It was a fun
That's
weekend.
good.
Heck yeah.
So
That's good. All right. Last question. Did you intentionally look up a song this week, and what was it? And maybe tell us something about it.
Intentionally look up a song. I wouldn't say this week, but last week.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So I've really been enjoying the song "Christ Be Magnified." It's there's two versions out there. I haven't decided yet which version I like best, but Corey Asbury has one. Cody Carnes has one. Fantastic song. I hate it when people say that new worship songs don't have deep theology. Just listening to that song, it's unreal. One of the lines in the bridge of the song says, "If the cross means transformation, then I'll be crucified with you." And so singing that with a congregation, this will be our third Sunday, the one coming up, to sing that one in a row as I've been teaching it. Mm-hmm. And something about those lyrics, to me, it just says, hey, I want everything that I do to magnify you. And we're used to singing hymns about, or even contemporary worship songs about magnifying Christ, things like that. But something about the way that this song is written, the power and the rawness behind those lyrics, just truly says to me, hey, Christ, I want everything that I do to magnify you, even into death, because the rest of that bridge says, basically, death is just a doorway into resurrection life, and I mean, it doesn't get any more real than that.
That's rich. That's good.
That's good. I'm going to look that up.
That's what I'm thinking too. I'm going to have to look that up too.
It's awesome.
Hey, text me that title.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, Garrett, we really appreciate you taking the time and surviving the tornado. We really appreciate that too. And thank you for sharing. I think sometimes, we, like you just shared that you did some stuff. And I think some people might think, well, he was just bragging about that. But it's not it. And that's not your heart. And we hear that, and we know that, and because we know you. And the humility and the service and just the leadership that, it's not above you or below you or anything like that to go out and say, all right, let me go take care of this because I need to and I want to. Man, that was a great interview with Garrett. It's been so much fun to get to do ministry with Garrett over the last few years. Mm-hmm. Between Highland Lakes and Cedar Valley and Latham Springs. I came out to Latham Springs one time and I met up with you guys.
I remember because the sound there was not set up correctly, and we're like, Jeremy, we need you to come because I think you're at Bremont at the time. So
and I don't even know. We were just in the area and we swung by, and but thinking about some of the things that he said and how as pastors, as youth pastors, as Sunday school teachers, as volunteers, we have similar struggles.
Yeah.
As a worship pastor, because he's on stage, in the lights, looking cool, and I think sometimes we can let that get to our head, and we shouldn't, because they have the same struggles that you and I have when it comes to ministry.
Yeah, I never realized. I guess I never thought about it. It's when you're in the background a lot, it's hard to relate to the people that are in the spotlights. I think we learned that we have the same goal but different roles. So
what did you say?
Same goal, different roles.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Title of the episode.
Oh, there you go. We don't got to look too far for the title now, do we?
Yeah.
Love that, Jacob.
So, Garrett was great. Super close friends. Ministry and outside. He checked on Amanda after her mom passed away daily. Texted me just to check on things. Close friends inside and outside of ministry. So
I'll just tag this. He is the real deal. Mm-hmm. He didn't tell them stories for his glory, but for God's glory. And I may or may not have already mentioned that, but he's the real deal. So,
yeah, and just to see the growth from where we started to where he is now. And, Garrett was one of those guys that when he was younger was like, is this guy ever going to grow up? And he did, and it's flourished into a great ministry and what he's doing. And so I would say if you're looking for a worship pastor to come lead your D Now special camp, family camp, youth children's camp, anything, I would say reach out to us. I don't know if you mentioned it in the episode, but I try to help manage their scheduling and all that stuff. So if not, you don't want to reach out to us or reach out to me or anything. He gave you his info, and you're not going to regret it. Especially if the full band comes out, you're not going to regret they're a talented group of people, and they're down to earth, and I think that's important, especially to students. Students tend to like the worship band more than you, and they don't let that get to their heads. And like I said, they're talented and just they're a joy to be around. So.
Well, and you can reach us at Youth Pastors Are Pastors 2 TOO, Youth Pastors or Pastor2 at gmail.com. Ask us for Garrett Gardner's information, or just tell us what's going on. Tell us how we can serve you.
And yell at us if you need to.
There you go. Jacob, you want to do it again next week?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Youth Pastors Are Pastors Too podcast. Find us, rate us, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you want to see our ugly faces, look for us on YouTube. While you're at it, give us a like on Facebook. See you next week.